Call the meeting to order. Nathaniel, will you lead us in prayer today, please, sir?
Father, we thank you for this opportunity that you've given us again to come and to counter the county business. God, we ask that you give us the wisdom that we need. In Jesus Christ's name, thank you, God, and amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I call the meeting to order. Seems to be everybody's here except for Brian Silvers today on the board. Need to approve the agenda. Anybody want to make a motion?
Make a motion that the agenda be approved.
Got a motion, got a second?
Second.
Got a second. Anybody disagree? Okay, we'll move forward. Okay, first thing on the agenda is request to amend the zoning of plus or minus 24.25 acre parcel identified as parcel number 10-03036, located in Merchants Commerce Center, being south of Parker Road, east and adjacent to Sony Lane, north of Highway 158, west of Medical Center Road, located in Gatesville Township. Property is currently zoned RMF-72, which is residential multifamily. The request is to rezone the parcel to R1 residential. We've all had time to look at it, think about it, go get questions answered. Anybody have any comments? Anybody got nothing to say? Mr. Carey, you got anything to say?
I guess you asked the questions that I had, was going to pose, if there's any other questions unanswered that you might have for me. The only thing I can do is recap everything we've done so far. I think the board has changed since we started all of it. I can't hear anything.
We're live streaming.
Oh, are you?
So they can.
So the general public can hear you.
I got you.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that's where I'm, would you like a recap of the whole process we've gone through, or you guys pretty well versed in it, or any questions that I can answer?
Anybody got any questions?
I got a whole playbook with you. At this point, I don't see any other feasible rezoning requests that would apply to the site. We started as commissioners meeting and didn't get any negative feedback for the requests that I put forward, so I had property surveyed at that point and cut up into parcels that you see. I guess you still have the maps there. From there, let's see. Yeah, I applied for 8-1, and that went before you put forth, and with comments stated then, it was understood that you thought it was too broad a category to be put into. Well, prior to that, there was a meeting A1 zoning meeting, and you didn't feel that was appropriate, and denied that zoning. Went to the commissioner's meeting after that, and one commissioner was for the rezoning of that, and the others went with your recommendation of not rezoning it. So with your comments, I reapplied for R1, which seemed the only appropriate thing to do. And the last meeting, I guess what you had a couple unanswered questions, and it was tabled, and here we are today.
Well, I remember tabling the meeting. One of the questions I think that came up as we kind of pull ourselves together just to review it, I think on your survey there's a street or something that's running right beside the nursing home or what's that called? The library?
Yeah.
Excuse me, Nathan. This is the parcel that's in front of the library behind, it's on the right-hand side of Sony Lane.
Oh, you talking about this?
It's behind,
I
yeah,
got
it's
you. Okay.
behind the, what you would call the Chinese restaurant.
I got it.
In front of the library. We're not discussing the other 59.
Lot 2,
Yeah.
lot 2. No, I don't have any questions. No, on lot
With
2.
all that said, I'm here to ask you to approve the R1 zoning after the plays, after it's been played out and stated, so. Is there anything that it doesn't qualify for to be R1?
Anybody got any comments? I need a motion one way or the other. We need to get a man to see. No comments? From anybody?
I make a motion. We approve the 24.25 acres
To all
to all one.
Okay. I got a motion. Do I need a second?
Second.
I got a second. The motion is to approve R1 for the 24.25 acre parcel. Parcel number 10-03036 at Merchants Commerce Park Center. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. You good to go on that one? Okay. Now we move on. The request is to amend the zoning on plus or minus 59.69 acre parcel identified as parcel number 10-03035, located in the Merchants Commerce Center, being south of Parker Road, west of Sony Lane, north of Highway 158, east of Cotton Gin Road, located in Gatesville Township. Property is currently zoned C1 commercial. The request is to rezone the parcel to R1 residential. Now, if you got any questions or comments, it's time to present. Okay?
Okay, again, the comment, the street that you are looking or you propose on the map, running right beside the library, is that actually a street or is this something you looking to put in?
No, it's a street there now. Are you familiar with the library?
I'm familiar with the library, but I couldn't.
There's asphalt, it's an asphalt street to the library entrance.
Uh-huh.
And then it's a path, it's a dirt path at present, it'll be gravel. It's there.
The problem that we have with this, Mr. Carey, is there's nothing on a map that shows that. There's nothing on a map that shows that. There's a road there. I can physically walk out there, I can walk on it, I can touch it, I can spit on it, I can do whatever I want to it. But there's not a road on a map in Gates County that shows that.
Right, okay. Well,
So therefore, it's not a road.
okay, it's not a road, no, it's a private, that'll be the private path of, I'm sorry, I don't need to, let me grab this map, and see what you're looking at.
If you want to come up to the podium, you can, Mr. Carey. You can
Okay, yeah, see, yeah. So the way the plat is, do you have the plat there in front of you? So all of these proposed parcels come to the end of the library site. And it shows the road to the end of the library site, so technically, there's a gate at that property line. The library owns to the existing gate. Part of the road is asphalt and part of it is dirt, presently. So, that answer that part of it? That is a designated road, I believe it's Cypress Creek Road. All right.
And of course, if we approve this, I'm pretty sure you're looking to approve that road. I mean, do the construction on that road to make it accessible.
It will be, yes, the road belongs to the Commerce as it is now, so technically it's not going to change the use of the road.
So are you saying it is a road, or is it a road?
It is a road, yes.
Let me ask you this question, Mr. Carey. You say that it belongs to Commerce Merchants Park. You own Commerce Merchants Park. Now, as far as the roads in Commerce Park, who maintains those roads?
I do.
So if we get 5 feet of snow, which don't ever happen, but it does happen occasionally, we have seen a amount of snow out there. Do you go out there and clean those roads? Do you have somebody clean those roads?
I have not. It has not become an issue at this point, no.
Well, I'm just saying, if it does, who's gonna maintain those roads?
I'm responsible for the road right-of-ways.
Are these roads built to state specifications? They aren't.
Certified, yes, sir. The goal is to have the state take over the roads. That's why we built the state specifications.
Are these roads built to state specifications, Lisa?
We would have to get the information from NCDOT. I don't have them that they are built at this moment to state specifications, but they would have to verify that. I don't have it. I mean, if you have it, Mr. Carey, you can
Do you
present
have
it.
that?
I
I
don't have
forget the company's name, it's, the company in Elizabeth City, I've got all that documentation, that the roads were certified by a division right now. They're the largest ones in town that, certified the construction of the roads. The roads were constructed to DOT standards. They were undercut, they had membrane placed down, the gravel was placed, state specifications, and the asphalt was state regulated asphalt. These are state, built spec roads.
You should have that in your records, your file somewhere.
She should.
it. We should, but
You don't.
we do not. We have a plat saying that they have an agreement to build them to those standards. We do. I do have that. There's a plat that's recorded that says they, as long as they build them, basically, you signed it, the engineer signed it. We do not have anything saying that is built to those standards.
I'm sure it was submitted. prior to
Exactly.
your-
And if you've got it, please send it, but I can't say they are. I mean, we could contact the NC.dot engineer. I do not have that. I have to be honest, I do not have.
Yeah, it's probably buried in a file somewhere.
And that little path there, the one that's not paved, I did get a chance to ride that. That's a very narrow path, and that's built to North Carolina Department of Transportation specs. The little, the unpaved part,
On Cypress Creek.
right. That's a very narrow path, and you saying that's built to,
Before anything can be improved, I have to get approval from you guys. It's gonna be improved. And it's only the section from where the asphalt stops to the gate.
right, that's what I'm talking about.
It's never been completely constructed. Once everything was finished, it was just left in that state. So, all that still has to be done. There's a lot of plans to be put in place after the, assuming that this parcel is approved for R1 as well, that's when everything will start, as far as the property lines and the clearing a small section for homes and such. That road will be maintained and actually created the way it should be.
Okay, Mr. Carey, going back to R1 again. It hasn't changed a whole lot from the last time in which you presented this to us, because you still got 10-acre plots. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's farmettes, and
There are restricted covenants that are going to be put in place. And
that's what you see. And the county cannot enforce restricted covenants, you know what I'm saying? So
once again,
I don't want to sit here and turn you down. I don't want to have to turn you down, but I would like to see more of, if you're gonna say residential, I would like to see you take that 10-acre plot and break that 10-acre plot to 10 1-acre plots, or 5 2-acre plots, and say,
this has all been researched and thought about, and it's not feasible for the infrastructure in place in the county right now. It's not, at this point in time, the number.
it might not be feasible, but I can also, you see what we have right there, which is not a whole lot, but what we have is commercial, as long as we got that nursing home right there, and as long as we got the credit union right there. Residential housing would probably be a whole lot better suited for that location than what a farmette with cows, horses, pigs. Okay,
Would the zoning be any different for 1-acre lots as 10-acre lots? Would it not still be R1 zoning?
I think what he wants to, now, you have to explain it, but it would still be R1 zoning, but I believe, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, what do you mean? You mean that if it qualifies as 10 acres to be a farmette, if it's over 10 acres, is that what you're saying? I think
That's just a terminology that.
No, I agree, so I think
That's
we need,
true.
yeah, explaining that. I understand what you're saying, and I think explaining to him what you mean is what's unique. I understand that. But I think that's where that's coming into play.
We're just discussing the whole parcel as it sits.
Yeah,
correct?
yes.
that's all the comments I got from them. Anybody else got anything to say?
So in the future on this road coming up Cypress Creek Drive, before you sell the lots, you gonna put that road in, correct?
It's gonna, well, the road's there, it's gonna be improved, yes. The road is put in, but it needs improvements. It will be a gravel road to asphalt. It'll be a gravel-based road. It will not remain dirt, yes.
And as far as access for water and those things, has that already been in the plan? Is it back there?
County water?
Yeah.
No, it'll be up to whomever purchases the site. They want a well, they want a well. They want water, there's water out there. That'll be up to the individual, whoever purchases the site.
Okay, how close is the county water line? Does it go down, Stony Lane there?
Yeah, the water line stops at the library.
Stops at the library.
There's a hydrant there. The last hydrant, I believe, is about 20 feet of 6-inch pipe past the hydrant, and that's where it dead ends.
All right, when you come out in the front up here where the commercial park is, how much land is left out there in the front?
Well, I'd like to discuss that on another topic. I'm not trying to cut you short, but that's my next goal. That doesn't really apply to this rezoning, does it? I'm not trying to cut you short there again.
Yeah. And when you say covenants, now what do you got in mind, and what kind of covenants you talking about
Well,
allowing?
I provided those last time, but the wording changed just a little bit after review. I think the only thing that really changed was about the animals. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the only thing that's changed. This is what we're recording, and every deed associated with the office.
Mr. Carey, would you use the mic?
I'm
People
sorry.
are letting us know they can't hear you on the live stream. Okay, thank you, that's all.
Not used to that. Apologize.
These last two items down here, maintaining the road and getting people to cooperate to do it together, that's a nightmare.
There will be a small HOA created to maintain that road for these lots. So there will be an HOA in place, and that money will be allocated. It'll take one person that purchases out there to be the president, and it'll be an annual association fee. Money will be allocated toward maintenance of Sunny Lane, the gravel portion of Sunny Lane, and the small gravel portion of Cypress Creek.
All right, who polices the money, and also who polices keeping the road up?
So HOA will be responsible for that, whoever becomes the president of that.
Is that something you would form, or something
It's
that
something
people
that I
do?
will create, and it will be passed on to the owners of the property. It will be spelled out, that everyone has to contribute. It'll be a set amount of money set aside.
And how long will this HOA be enforced?
I'm sorry?
How long will the HOA be enforced?
For the indefinitely.
Not necessarily.
It'll
Not,
be attached to that property. If you own that property, it will transfer to the next purchaser.
well, the reason why I say this is because I own a piece of property in another part of a state, different state, that has a HOA. And at that time, I joined the HOA, and the limit of the HOA was for 15 years. At the end of the 15 years, it's up to the people whether they want to continue the HOA or dissolve the HOA. That's why I'm asking.
Well, I don't know that. I've been told that it will be indefinite. It will be attached to that property for eternity, is what I've been told. But I'm not denying what you're stating. Once a board is created, they may be able to change the rules. I don't know these things, so. It's good intent. It's to protect the residents at the back of Sunny Lane. I know one gentleman out here personally, and I wouldn't want the road to go into shambles, and that's why this is to be created, to maintain and protect the site.
Any more comments?
I mean, it appealed to me that, with this stipulation and stuff he got put together, and he wanted to put it on his deed, I mean, sound like he have some things in place. I don't know, how much it would change the future of Gates County or that park area if we do decide to change the zoning, but for the foremost, it just looked like, you know, things are pretty much in place. So I don't have no other comment.
It sounds like a personal opinion on what you're looking for. Let me just ask you this. Would you like to see the site in front of the library stay pretty much as it is? Or would you like to see a big warehouse put up there? It's zoned commercial right now. So it's not gonna change much with this R1 zone. If it stays commercial, the sky is the limit for what can be put there in a commercial aspect. So that was my thought. It would be more received as staying as it is to a degree. I mean, that's just.
Well, that was the true intent of it in the beginning,
Sorry?
to be a commercial park and get business, whether
The
it be
front
warehouses or what. That was the intent of its whole plan,
The front still is.
yeah.
But then there again, Mr. Carey, if I personally wouldn't want to see a warehouse in the front, I would like to see it in the back if I was going to see one.
There again, the county's not ready for that. My statistics don't show that the county's ready for that, so. This site is the same as the one you just approved for R1. They sister each other. It's on the same, essentially it's the same back portion of this property.
When you say you'll put these covenants in on the deed, how about if you find that you can't sell these pieces of property because of these covenants?
Then I'll take that burden. That'll be my burden to take.
But we as a committee, or the county, we don't have any guarantees that these covenants have to be applied after we give this recommendation.
I can't answer. You're asking questions that, yeah.
It's all hypothetical, but there again, you got 7 plots back here,
Okay, yeah,
and you're gonna put in an HOA,
yes.
okay? Now you go to sell this, and you only sell it to one person. Do you expect this one person to maintain that road?
They will, according to their HOA restrictions, yes.
They're gonna have to maintain that road by themselves.
Yes, sir, they will. Or,
I wouldn't buy it.
this is all, you guys are beating me up here.
I know, but I'm just saying, I wouldn't buy it.
We're not
Well,
trying,
I'm not trying to
I'll
beat you
absorb
up.
that. I'll absorb that responsibility. So I'm just saying, we're talking about the, yes. I don't know how else, you guys can pick this apart all day long, I'm sure.
I'm not trying to beat you up, Mr. Carey, but what I'm trying to say is, okay, you go out there and you sell this thing and say, all right, one guy goes out there and says, I want to buy this 1 10-acre plot. That's fine.
But my,
And then it's another 10, 20 years before you sell another one.
it may very well be.
And you expect that man to maintain that road.
If I still own part of the parcels, I'm subject to the part of the HOA that he is as well, once this is created. So I'm
No, you're
serious.
subject to.
You guys are trying to plan out this thing before it's ever approved. I'm asking for rezoning so that I can make this happen. I'm sure,
Ms.
when
Cherry.
someone applies for a building permit, there's more regulations that have to come into play.
There's some, yeah, there's, of course, there's some
So
things
this
we have
is
to
just
do
the
for
first
zoning.
piece of the puzzle, right?
Mr. Carey, we're not trying to pick you apart. This is part of what we're supposed to do. we supposed to look at the future of where this thing is headed to and not make decisions on right now. We got to look at and see if it's gonna work or not.
I understand.
It's not,
We're
not
trying-
we're
we're
trying
trying
to
to see
I
in the future.
apologize, it seems like we've gone on a different tangent a
Yeah.
couple times, and that's, it threw me for a loop.
We got to sit here with our little crystal ball and project what's gonna happen 20 years from now, or try to.
But there again, if the R1, doesn't matter if it's one lot, one house, or 10 houses or 100 houses, whatever the site can tolerate. So it just, I don't know what else to say other than, I mean, that I've covered all the bases that I feel like I can. And you've got valid points. And I don't mean to undermine any of your things you've thrown at me. But they've been thought through, most of them, and this is, I haven't heard one comment yet that it hasn't been addressed. So.
Any other comments? Any recommendations? You got to do something.
Planning commission,
To the county commission.
county commission, yeah.
Can we do that?
I'm sorry.
Can we kick it up to the county commissioners? We just don't come up with an answer for him?
Yeah, if you do not make a decision, it will be deferred to the county commissioners, yes.
Okay.
But if you'd like to make a motion, make a recommendation, that's what we're here for.
I would make a recommendation and a motion that we move it and put it in the hands of the county commissioners.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I make a recommendation that we'll put this decision in the hands of the county commissioners.
Oh, commissioners.
I have a motion on the floor that this gets kicked up to the county commissioners. Need a second?
Second.
Got a second? All those in favor, raise your hand. Right hand. Okay. You'll have to go to the county commissioners to get your answer, sir. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm
thank you
sorry.
for one of them anyhow.
I'm sorry.
That floors me there.
I mean, you know,
Approve one and can't make a decision on the piece beside it, but, okay. Thank you very much.
all right. All right, you have a great day. Right or wrong?
Okay, go ahead with our next agenda item, our old business.
I think we have somebody who wants to speak.
Oh, we do?
I think that was a good decision.
I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Riddick?
Look, he's got some good points, is what he's.
He's got some good points,
I mean,
but I
he's
declare
trying
this
to-
don't go.
Looks that way, but you don't have anything concrete, you know, that you can put your fingers on, you know. You sign an affidavit or something like that, it might be different, you know what I mean?
Mr. Steve
That's
Carroll.
what I'm thinking, you know, something that I.
Mr. Carroll, come to the podium, sir. State your name, address, and what you would like to talk to us about, please, sir.
Stephen Carroll, 1042 NC Highway 37 North, Gates, North Carolina. I've come before the planning board to discuss some possible ordinance for fox pens, and most especially the noise from the fox pen. I have a cover letter and a hunting and game reserve possible ordinance, in which is the same as Chowan County. And most specifically, in looking at it, it's about the noise. And the reason I bring this forward is because we have complained to the sheriff, and the sheriff, through his deputies, has said they would not enforce the noise ordinance. They will not give me a statement in writing to say that, so I don't know if they're just trying to kick it down the road or they don't want to address it at all. So I'd like the planning board to look at this, if y'all will hand this out. And the noise has been such a problem at times that it's louder than your TV set with your windows closed and your doors shut. Times it is not. They run in, they go to the back of the pen, and it's not that much noise, it's just regular dogs barking. At other times, it's horrible. And you cannot appreciate it unless you experience it. And basically, we've been told by the deputies that they're not going to do anything. That's what I've received from that. So if we do have a noise ordinance in the county and it won't be enforced, then we need to address it more through the planning board that addresses the fox pens. Because I know we don't want to do away with a noise ordinance in the county, and I don't know why the fox pen is exempt. Just because it's classified as agriculture, it should not be exempt. And I don't know why some counties can have regulations and we cannot. And during the wildlife hearing on these subjects, which they're coming out this week with their rulings, those imposed of the new restrictions on fox pens, their main argument, that's a county problem. We got a couple of counties got a problem. Leave it up to the counties to take care of it. But it doesn't appear at this point that the counties are taking care of it. Do you have any questions?
So you've already read the North Carolina Wildlife Commission's bylaws. They say if the fox pen has to abide by. You've already gotten those.
Yeah, I have the earlier ones, but they have a new ruling coming out this week at 9 o'clock on Thursday.
Okay.
And I don't know why Chowan County can have restrictions on noise for fox pens, and we cannot.
The thing with this particular fox pens in Gates County, there's no ordinances in play to prevent anyone from putting them up or anything, telling them the guidelines to go by. These people have already put these things up. It's kind of like the solar farms when they first came here. There was no ordinances on that to prevent them to put them up.
I'm not saying,
Have any regulations. The same thing with these. We had no regulations in place, but that's not saying that we don't need to look at some ordinances for down the road to prevent some things from happening.
I
agree
am
with
not against hunting. I am not against fox pens per se. Location is everything. When they put it behind 40 residential homes, and some people can walk and touch the fence from their property line, that's too close, and it's too loud. I have a little strip of field between me and the line. It's still too loud at times. It's the biggest dog fight you ever heard when they're up against us, and there's 20 or 30 dogs in there in that one spot.
Have you, as community people, had a meeting or anything with the owners to see if you could work these problems out?
The sheriff called a meeting.
Oh, you did?
He called a meeting, informal, at the Gates Volunteer Fire Department. And that lasted about 10 minutes. Because the guy said, I can put in some trees. That may help. What may help and what works now are two different things. I can't wait 20 years to do away with this noise for the tree to deaden the sound. And it's impacted the value of our homes. If we were to sell the homes, I have talked to 5 brokers, and they did not know about the fox pen. Maybe one of them did. And of those 3 that I first talked to, he says, that's going to impact the sale of your home. And I've got just as much money invested in my home and my parents' home next door as he's got invested in that fox pen. And I don't want to devalue his property, but I certainly don't want to devalue mine either. If a noise ordinance can help quiet that issue down, I think it's a plus for the county. And I would hate for Gatesville to put a fox pen right over here in one of these fields. This is zoned agriculture, in Sunbury, in Hosville. And I am definitely for agriculture. I have spent my whole life in agriculture in one form or another. And I've been involved in regulations for almost 35 years. So I know what regulations are for. The regulations are for the 5% or less that do bad. It's not for the 95% that do good. You don't need regulations until somebody steps over the line. And we, as residents of Gates, feel like somebody has stepped over the line with the amount of noise we have right now, and it should be addressed.
In the beginning, when this pen began to be put up, you and the other residents that live in there, was any questions asked at that point in time?
Didn't even know it was happening until it happened. I didn't know till somebody 3 miles away called me and told me it was happening. I didn't know. Nobody came to me and said, this is happening. You know, they had clear-cut the field, clear-cut the forestry behind my house, which is normal agricultural practices. I understand that. Next thing I knew, there's a fox pen coming in and fences going up. Nobody addressed any other people there. To tell you the truth, I didn't know what a fox pen really was. I've heard of them. I've seen them on Highway 11, but I didn't expect one to be in my back door.
Now, I understand also that the person who owns this fox pen has put this in as a bona fide forestry. And when it falls under bona fide forestry, if I'm understanding this right, then it's exempt from any of the regulations.
That's what we are told. We don't know if that's true. We don't know if it's true. We've had lawyers that said, I don't think that's true. Questions of other counties says that's not true. We don't know. We had one person stand up here, told the county commissioners, with information she received or gave to the county commissioners, it was received at 15 minutes before the meeting. And we didn't know what was going on. It wasn't presented to any of us. We didn't know anything about it. We were just told to be good neighbors.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I hate to cut you short, but
That's
we
fine.
got more other business we got to take care of. I appreciate you coming out. We will take it under advisement. We will probably have to sit down and talk to our county commissioners and see what we can do, if anything. But we'll see what we can do for you.
I thank you for your time. If you got any questions individually, my phone number's on that cover sheet. Please contact me.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
And I want to say, I do respect you as a citizen bringing it to my attention and our attention. And I feel what you feel.
Well, I'm
I just wanna
down
let you know
here
that.
not officially representing any group, But I'm representing the community we live in and the people I have spoken to about this. And there are others down there that have been highly vocal on this issue.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Thank you. Would you like to take a 5-minute break? You can. It's up to you. I just wanted to offer that before we get started. It's completely up to you, though.
Does that give you time to go out and get done on that?
No. I just wanted to make sure y'all knew that.
I think it's gonna be a long night.
Okay. It's up
Are you gonna cut yours short, Chad?
He's been waiting.
How long is this presentation?
Go on down to Tar Hill and go get us a beat, bring it on back. That's in
Thanks,
Scott,
Steve.
right?
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
I like the new furnishings.
You do think they would have got you a better podium to stand at, don't you?
It looks like Congress up here now, don't it?
I will carry the microphone and, yeah, I actually. Hi. I actually have to be out of here by 5 myself, so
Okay.
there you go. Maybe 5:15. I have three of these today, so I've still
Today?
got one to drive home and get ready for.
Okay.
Yeah, so. It's great to be here. How's everybody doing? It's good to see you.
Great to have you here.
I appreciate, it was very informative to see you guys deliberate. I don't want to talk about that now, we got lots of stuff to talk about, but definitely,
We didn't do a good job, is that what you're saying?
no, that's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. Suffice it to say quickly that, do I need to stand still? Is there a camera?
No, what we want to tell you is you have to tell Mr. Warren Curry when you need him to move
To
his
advance?
route.
Okay,
Yes,
will do.
that's it.
In matters of rezoning cases, you make recommendations. Is it necessary for you to make a recommendation? No. You can pass the zoning case on to the elected officials without a recommendation. And you don't need a motion to do that. You can simply just do it. So that's something you should know. And the fox pen issue is one that we are not going to cover in this ordinance. You know that. Fox pens are protected under the agricultural rules of the state. If it's a bona fide farm or forestry activity, it is exempted from your development regulations. That does not exempt it from your other regulations, okay? Things like noise are other regulations, okay? So that's something that you can regulate under a different set of rules should you choose to do so. The issue about whether or not a fox pen is or is not an agricultural use turns on the issue of whether or not it's hunting. And that's a question to be explored. I haven't explored it yet, but that's certainly where I would go. If I was a crack land use person who was out looking for something to study and understand, you know, hunting is exempted from development regulations. Is a fox pen hunting? I don't know.
Lisa,
Well-
we do have a noise ordinance.
Yeah, we do have a noise ordinance that is actually, the sheriff's department enforces that.
That's exactly right. That's a regulation that's enforced by your police department.
But it sounds like, according to Mr. Carroll, that they're not enforcing it.
That would be a question for your elected officials. Now, remember, the sheriff is a constitutional officer. He's voted in, so he doesn't have to answer to the county commissioners.
But he can get voted out.
Yes, he could. And he could also be sued if he's not following the rules that are on the books where he's sheriff. So,
But before when you have complaints with the noise issue, then it has to be a study done in order to bring this to fact. Is that right?
that's correct. There needs to be some analysis about whether or not the noise that's occurring is or is not regulated by the regulations, and if it is or is not consistent with what the regulations prohibit. That's the question. Now, maybe that analysis was done. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But, you know, you guys will need to determine that.
Who's responsible to get the determination of the noise?
That's a very good question. And I'm afraid I don't have a very good answer for you. I think that's another arm of the county government, but I don't know who that would be. Probably the county commissioners are in the best position to have that discussion with the other constitutional officers, okay? Anyway, that was great. I enjoyed seeing you guys work through that stuff. I sit on the Board of Adjustment in Durham, so I know what it's like to be interacting with an applicant on things, so that was great. Let's go ahead on to the first slide, please. Let's talk about your zoning ordinance. Chapter 55, the zoning review. This is my second time here. Thank you for the chance to be here. These are the three things we're going to talk about. What time is it, by the way?
It is, we are at 3:52.
Okay, so we've got about an hour. Great. Let's go to the next slide. I always talk about project background. I'm going to go over this stuff very, very quickly. I know you guys remember it. The reason, the impetus for this project was to make sure that Title 15, okay, and the chapters that are under Title 15 in the county code are compliant with the general statutes. The 160D provisions took effect, or are going to take effect on July 1st. They were adopted a couple of years ago. We need to be sure that our regulations are consistent with theirs. Every local government in the state of North Carolina is going through this process right now. There are also a handful of recent amendments that have been adopted by the county that need to be integrated into the development regulations. And then we also are looking to correct some ambiguities, remove some redundancy, etc. That was the reason for the project. Let's go to the next slide, please. Some of our goals, we wanted to address the state law, but not just the state law. There were changes in federal law. There's also court precedent. So we've got a handful. We've got a shopping bag full of law changes that we need to address. We also wanted the document to be clarified, simplified. Now, you guys know it's grown in length. It's longer than it was. You guys know there's more stuff in here than there was before. And I know that sometimes that probably makes you sad. On the other hand, it's my hope that the things that are in there will make your jobs a little bit easier. Okay? When you're confronted with an applicant who's looking for a decision on a rezoning case, there's a set of criteria that you guys can use to analyze that request and make a decision. So it's hope that the material that's in there will help clarify, simplify, and ease administration. That's really what we're trying to do. Integrate best practice where we can, give you guys the tools that you need to do your job so you're not here for hours and hours and hours. Next slide. You guys may remember back in August we prepared a diagnosis memo. It basically is the roadmap for the project. Talked about some of the changes that we needed to make, those that were mandatory, and those that were optional. And we have made a lot of changes to this document. Next slide, please. The first thing I'll mention is the structure of the document. So this is something that I showed a while back. It's an appendix to Chapter 155, and it's basically a table that explains or hopes to explain where the current regulations in the zoning chapter have gone to in this draft chapter. So basically we've got 8 articles here. Organized by topic area. We used to have 11. Oh, wait, is this the subdivision regulation? Next slide. Sorry. Yeah, we're not even talking about subdivision regulation. We're talking about zoning. Okay. There we go. So there's our 8 articles. We used to have 11. We've got a topic-based approach. We've put like material together. We've picked up and brought in the manufactured home provisions that were in Chapter 151, and we picked up the county's development standards that were in Chapter 154, and we've brought these into the zoning regulations. We've also picked up the voluntary agricultural district and enhanced voluntary agricultural district and moved them to their own chapters. So we've shuffled the sequence of chapters in Title 15, basically organized a much more robust zoning chapter and a much more robust subdivision chapter, okay? Let's talk about some of the key changes. Next slide. We wanted to recognize the Technical Review Committee as a group of staff members and professionals who could be involved in various aspects of the development review process like site plans and can weigh in and give you and the elected officials the benefit of their understanding about how these things work. Obviously, we were going to address the procedures for 160D. We needed to recognize expedited and transfer subdivisions, particularly in the A1 district. We wanted to integrate manufactured homes and county development standards into the regulation and move those voluntary agricultural stuff out. Finally, a new planned development district. I haven't talked too much about that. We're going to talk about it today. It's a new tool. Well, new to you. It's not a new tool. It's a tool that's been around for a long time, but it's new to Gates County. You have a planned development process today, but it's a use type. Okay, if I come to you and I say I want to establish a planned use a planned unit development, and it's a kind of a use. It's allowed in this district or that district or what have you. The approach that we are suggesting is actually a planned development district, okay, not a use. So I can come and request the planned development district. And when I make that request, I enter into a negotiated discussion with you, Board of Commissioners, about the kinds of uses that are there, the development standards that apply, okay? A little bit more flexible, a little bit more open-ended. That's good for the applicant. Also, and most importantly, there is a minimum expectation that the development quality that would result from the planned development district would be better than what would result from a strict application of the standards. Okay, so I get flexibility as an applicant, but there's a responsibility to the community to provide a development that's better than what would have otherwise come along. Okay? Who gets to make that decision? The elected officials, with a recommendation from you. Does this planned development proposal exceed what would have come had we not done this planned development district? That's a decision for you guys to make through that process, okay? But we'll come back to that. Next slide. We've incorporated a use classification system, okay? Right now you've got a list of uses for each zoning district. And that's not great, okay? There's inconsistency. There's a lack of modern uses. There's a lot of obsolete uses that people don't use anymore. So we wanted a more modern use classification system. We need a procedure for determining where do or how do unlisted uses get slotted into this use classification system. In the old days, we could simply say, oh, it's not listed, it's prohibited. Court of Appeals tells us that's not allowable. We have to have a process for determining how we handle unlisted uses. We can't just say they're prohibited. By the way, we also need to identify if there are any uses in the county that we do want to prohibit. And we do. And there's some listed in there. We'll come to those in a minute. We needed to clarify the rules for accessory and temporary uses. Okay, so most use types have a principal use. My house on my lot. My house is a principal use. Now I might have an accessory use on the same lot, right? My garage. My garage is an accessory use to my house, which is my principal use. A lot of principal uses might have at some time or another a temporary use, okay? The portable storage container on my driveway that I'm moving stuff with is a temporary use to my principal use, okay? And non-residential uses have the same kinds of things. There's accessory and temporary uses for those as well, okay? So adding some clarity to the regulations about what's principal, what's accessory, what's temporary, so that that's a little easier to understand. There's a couple pieces of federal law we need to address, okay? This is the Religious Land Use Institutionalized Persons Act. Yeah.
What is that?
Well, it protects, that's a good question. It protects people's ability to exercise their religious freedom, is really what it does. And as a matter of land use, it does something that is very specific, and this is what it is. RLUIPA says schools, churches, and fraternal organizations must all be treated identically in terms of the districts where they're allowed and the procedures that you use to review them, okay? So if I have the A1 district, okay, and I have churches as a special use, and schools as a permitted use, and fraternal organizations as prohibited, okay, that's a violation of RLUIPA because we're not treating them the same. They have to all be the same for that district, okay? That requires a little bit of thought. Right now, your current regulations are all over the boards with respect to these three uses, where they're allowed and the processes that we follow. What we've done is ratchet those back a little bit. We've been a little bit more conservative about where some of those uses are allowed, and where things might have been permitted by right currently, this draft might require them to get a special use permit. Again, the idea is consistency with RLUIPA, okay? Also, telecommunications towers. There's been a couple major pieces of legislation. Interestingly, they were both tax bills that came from Congress that had all kinds of provisions embedded in them for wireless telecommunication facilities, including 5G. Local governments are obliged to meet those federal requirements with respect to other 5G uses and other telecommunication things. Maybe you've heard something about small wireless facilities, maybe not. Generally speaking, small wireless facilities are permitted everywhere in North Carolina in a right-of-way without a permit, okay? And that's part of the federal law. There is the ability for local governments to require a permit for small wireless facilities when they're proposed on private property, okay? But you gotta have the laws on your books to exercise them. Now you do, or you will, assuming you adopt this. Finally, signs. One of my favorite topics. I assume, have you spent time talking with them about Reed? Okay. Well, this is your quotable moment for the day. 3 years ago now, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down a landmark ruling in a case called Reed v. Gilbert, Arizona. And it's about signs, okay? And specifically, it's about the requirement that sign regulations must be content neutral, okay? A content-based sign regulation is one that regulates speech, okay? And we all know about what regulating speech is like, right? It's not something that we do a lot of in this country. First Amendment is very important to us as a culture. Supreme Court said if you have sign regulations that regulate speech, then they must pass the test of strict scrutiny or they're unconstitutional. Now, we know from previous cases and past case law that no sign regulation in the country passes the test of strict scrutiny. They just don't. Okay? And if you want to know what strict scrutiny is, we can cover that next time. We'll talk about it. It's a couple of very complicated legal concepts. Suffice it to say, no sign regulation can meet that test. Not in this country, okay? So what the Supreme Court ended up saying in the Reed case was this. If a planner or a government official has to read a sign to know what kind of sign regulation to apply to that sign, then that sign regulation is content-based and is unconstitutional, okay? So there is your quotable moment for today. In a nutshell, we can regulate general things about signs. How tall are they? How many of them do you have on your site? How big is the face area? Is it lit? Is it landscaped around the base? Those are things we can regulate. What we cannot regulate is, what does the copy say, right? Are there any temporal aspects to the sign, right? Is that a for sale sign versus a for rent sign? You can't regulate those differently because it requires you to read the sign. You can't have one kind of sign for a church and a different kind of sign for a commercial establishment and treat a church differently because it's a nonprofit. Why? Because you'd have to read the sign. Finally, you can't have special kinds of sign standards for special kinds of uses, okay? That's a restaurant sign. That's a dry cleaner's sign. That's a flea market sign. You can't do that because it's necessary to read the sign to know what kind of regulation to apply, okay? So we can have generic sign standards, which we've done for you. That's in this draft, okay? We've added some parking lot configuration standards. We've enhanced your off-street loading standards. We've put in some basic perimeter landscaping buffer standards. So we're bringing you guys into the 21st century in terms of your development regulations. They're a little bit more than what you've got on the books today, but they're not heavy-handed. They're not what I would call, way out there. So we're dipping our toe into modern development regulations, the kind of which you're seeing, in your other, I believe Chowan County was one of your colleague counties that was mentioned today. The kinds of standards like you might see in Chowan, okay? So we're coming up to that level with your colleagues, your colleague counties. Next slide. Any questions? That's the background. I'm ready to jump into the stuff now. I know it's a lot to throw at you, but that was kind of a quick summary about these big changes that we're making. Now I'm going to get into a little bit more detail, okay? There are 8 articles, and we're going to talk about each one of them, probably in way more detail than you wanted to. It is our hope, and I don't know if Lisa has prepared you for this today or not, it is our hope that you guys will be able to make a recommendation on this document, Title 15, today. It's our hope. Maybe we'll be able to do that. Maybe we won't. If we won't, that's okay. If we need to have another meeting, that's okay. We can do that, but that would be our hope. So if you've got questions, if you've got suggestions for change, this would be a good time to do that. It is absolutely fine for you to make a recommendation one way or another with additional changes to the language. So you don't have to bless this whole thing like it sits right now. You can absolutely say, yeah, Chad, that looks pretty good, but that thing on page 75, get that out of here. That's absolutely acceptable. If that's something that you guys are prepared to provide information on, then that's something that we need to hear. And what we would do is take your recommendation along with that suggestion to the elected officials for their consideration, okay? The last thing I'll say before I jump in is this. These UDOs are living, breathing documents, okay? They're always changing, okay? You'll probably amend this document at least quarterly for the foreseeable future. It is impossible to know all of the different iterations and possibilities that are out there that await you in the administration of this regulation. Plus, state law changes all the time. And so it's necessary for you to recognize that, amendments to your UDO are just part of life. It's just part of what you do as a local government. In fact, if you're not changing your UDO, then you're probably not responding to changing conditions in ways that you should. So, if there's something in the ordinance that gives you pause or makes you worried, you'll have plenty of opportunity over the coming months and years to amend it. So, with that, let's jump in, okay? First article is zoning districts. There are 16 subsections in the zoning districts article. The vast, vast majority of this material is carried forward. Can we go to the next slide? This is the table of districts that are established in your ordinance, okay? So this is the full list of zoning ordinances or zoning districts that you have in the Gates County UDO, okay? Or the zoning ordinance. A1, C1, I1, O&I, PD, which is the new one, right? R1, RMF, and RMH1. Those are your zoning districts. Every piece of property that's inside your planning jurisdiction should have a zoning district designation in accordance with this, okay? PD is new. I'm going to talk about it more in a second, so just hang tight with me, all right? Let's go to the next slide. This is a screen capture of pages 155.14 and 155.15 from the ordinance. And the reason that I'm putting it up here is so that I can explain some of the things that are new or different about what's in the draft that's in front of you. First and foremost, the district dimensional standards have been brought into individual tables. Each district has its own table, and each table sets down for you density, lot width, setbacks, building heights, et cetera. So that's all set down for you in a summary table. By and large, and for the most part, these numbers have not changed from what's in your current regulation. However, your current regulation doesn't have any residential density numbers. How on earth you guys have made decisions about what residential density to apply is a mystery to me. I still don't understand how you've managed to do it. If there's no clearance about how many units you can have per acre, now you have some. I don't know if you saw it or not. This is actually your RMF district. Your RMF district has a section in it that allows 72 units an acre. Did you know that? It's in your ordinance, which is crazy. I mean, that's a density that's more dense than Charlotte. And I don't think that's consistent with what you guys want for this county, and I'm pretty sure it's not in your comp plan, right? It's an example of there's stuff in your zoning ordinance that just doesn't make any sense, right? So what we've done is gone in and made some adjustments, right? We're thinking about residential densities in the RMF district of around 8 units an acre, right? Which is, it's a suburban density, right? I don't know that you'll ever really get that because you've got some water and sewer limitations that will tamp down development potential. But if somebody has water or sewer or water and sewer available, it's conceivable they could get to 8 units an acre, maybe. Okay.
I'm so glad to see that.
I don't know if do we have any multifamily units in the
We
county?
did.
We did.
No, I'm just saying zoned. We had an RMF 72, and that was what we heard today. I mean, no,
Yes.
seriously, that was one we heard today. But would it have accommodated that? I want to say, and I'm just guessing not to take up too much time, they might have depended on the septic system from the health department design of a septic system possibly, is my thinking when this was put out there. That's what I'm thinking. It could be off, could be right on. But we have some duplexes, and we have RMF.
Right, so your duplex densities are probably, at best 2 units an acre and probably something closer to 2 units on 2 acres. It's probably about the density.
My question here is we have this 1 acre lot minimum
Yes,
per house. So now you're gonna say we can put 2 houses on an
No,
acre?
duplexes are a townhouse, basically, I think, is when we do RMF.
Good question.
RMF is duplexes, it's also townhouses.
Right.
And can I do more than 1 townhouse on an acre? As long as it's got water and sewer and meets the health code requirements, the answer is yes.
But do we want that in Gates County?
Right now, your current regulation allows up to 72.
Yeah, and that got kicked out, but that's beside the point. But I'm just saying, I just thought, I always thought the 1 acre minimum was it, and 1 house, 1 acre, and that was it.
Well, and I think RMF, I think that's the thing to maybe focus on that multifamily, which I'll let Chad maybe hone in. But if we want to move forward and to have housing later on, I think maybe we do, but we're able to control that with this density, if that's something, if that explains it in any way.
Right.
I think that helps. I think why wouldn't we want it? And now we're able to define that a little better. But you're the planning board, you're gonna make these recommendations. This is some of the things to think about.
If you'll note on the RMF table, note number 4, and I realize it's hard to see on the screen, hopefully you can see it in front of you. It says, townhouses and multifamily uses require a lot of 43,560 square feet, an acre, okay, for the first unit, plus 7,000 square feet for each second unit, 5,000 for each third, and each additional, okay? So you gotta have an acre anyway, just right off the bat, all right? Now, if you wanna have a 2-unit multifamily development, you gotta have an acre plus 7,000 square feet, so about 50,000 plus some change. If you want to go to 3, well, you need 55,000. Okay, if you want to go to 4, you need 60, and so on and so on and so on. So your lot area is getting larger as you add additional units. It's not like we're shoving 8 or 9 units onto an acre of land. Okay,
But you're shoving more people.
but there are more dwelling units on lands that are, 60,000 square feet in size, 70,000 square feet in size. Yes, it's possible that you could see a 2 or a 3 acre site with 7 or 8 units on it.
You catch there's gonna be the septic system.
Exactly.
That's where it's gonna stop.
Exactly. If the health department okays it and there's no sewer, then great, you can do it. If the health department is not okay with it, then no, it's never gonna happen, regardless of whether or not the zoning ordinance will allow it. Okay? Someday you might have sewer, maybe, maybe not. Someday you might have community sewer systems. Those are, coming along. There's a bill pending before the legislature that says you have to allow these uses in all of your residential districts. So when that happens, I don't know what the case may be. Certainly you guys will be in a little bit better position with this than you are right now. Okay, one other thing to point out to you on these districts. So we've carried forward your current dimensional requirements. In the couple of districts where you allow something more than a single-family home, we've tried to calibrate your density provisions to be more in line with what's realistic. Finally, we've added new purpose and intent statements to all of the districts to give you guys a little bit more guidance about what is the purpose of the district, what kind of development should we expect in the district, and what's inappropriate for the district. Okay, so if you have not had a chance yet to look at the purpose and intent statements for the districts, you should check those out because they're new, they're updated, and they're different. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. This is the table of allowable encroachments. So we've got dimensional standards that apply, right? Street setbacks, front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, etc. And those things apply to principal uses and accessory uses, etc. But it's true, the old adage, there's an exception to every rule. And in some instances, it might be necessary for a principal or accessory use to encroach into a required setback. When? Well, one good example of that kind of situation is when somebody needs to have a ramp put in. They can't climb the front stairs up to their house. And so they need a ramp, which happens sometimes. Sometimes those ramps have to encroach into a side yard or a front yard setback. And what are we going to do? Tell somebody they can't have a ramp to get in their house? No. We're going to make an exception. We're going to have an allowable encroachment. This is the list of accessory uses and site features that might or might not encroach into a required setback. What we've tried to do here is make it clear for you and for the applicant those things that can and those things that can't encroach, right? So while I might have an attached canopy that could encroach into a required side yard, my deck can't, okay? My fence or privacy wall can be in a required yard or setback, right? But my garage or carport may not. So we've tried to add a little bit more clarity for you and for staff about the things that can be inside those setbacks and the things that can't, okay? And I hope that, you see there's a trend in the regulations where we're trying to anticipate the possibilities and give you guys some tools to interpret and apply your regulations so that you know what to expect, applicants know what to expect, the elected officials know what to expect.
What did we have before this? Did we have anything? Didn't have anything. That's good. That's a good tool to have in the toolbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see a lot of questions on handicap ramps. I mean, that's something people need.
Yes.
And we have setbacks, but there, as you said, there's nothing to say what can encroach. So it's
Right. And the important thing, the most important thing, it's good that you've got a tool to administer it. That's good. From a legal standpoint, the most important thing is that you've got something that allows you to be consistent so that Chad's ramp is the same as Lisa's ramp. So that we're not giving me some kind of special treatment that somebody else doesn't get. Okay, because that's the kind of stuff that can get us in lawsuits. And we don't want that.
Let me ask you an illustration here. Say if I had a house and I'm 18 feet off the property line sale my mom's. And she has an easement for a drive coming past my property.
Right.
To get to some more of her property.
Sure.
And I want to add on to my house. And it's okay with her if I come past that 20 feet. She don't have, it's not 20 feet exactly off of the property line, but it's okay with her if I do that. Is that okay with the county? Can the county do that?
That's a good question. So there were we mixed a couple of concepts there, so I want to unwind those a little bit. You talked about an easement and you talked about a setback, okay? So can your addition or expansion encroach into the easement? Well, that's a matter for the easement holder to decide. I'm okay with it or I'm not okay with it, okay? Then there's the setback issue, all right? That's the legal thing that applies to everybody. So I've got an expansion, or I want to do an expansion. I want to encroach into the required setback. Can I do that? Today, you have to get a variance to do that, okay? You have to go to the Board of Adjustment, you have to get a variance. What is the criteria that the Board of Adjustment uses to consider a request like that? Do you have a hardship? Can you prove a hardship about why you must encroach into the setback, okay? If you have a hardship, then they'll consider that and maybe you get an approval. If you don't have a hardship, they should absolutely throw that case out, okay? That's today. Under the draft regulation, we've incorporated what I'll call a safety net provision. It's called an administrative adjustment, and it allows staff to administratively adjust, allow deviations of numeric standards like setbacks up to 10% administratively under certain conditions and for specific reasons. So if your addition falls within one of those criteria that's allowable as an administrative adjustment, then the zoning administrator can grant that request without it going to the Board of Adjustment. The common example that we see a lot of is I go through, I got my building permit, I was going to site my house here, I went out there to excavate to put my foundation in, I hit bedrock, I need to move 5 feet this way so that I'm off of the rock. When I move that 5 feet, I've encroached into the other setback. Administrative adjustment is a tool that allows that to be addressed without having to go to the Board of Adjustment, okay? There's a couple other examples like saving existing trees or staying outside of environmentally sensitive areas, etc. So there is a tool out there that allows that kind of flexibility. You should absolutely be thinking about incentives for the kinds of development that you want, flexibility, okay, that allows your staff some room to maneuver, and then finally some choice to applicants about how they'll comply with the rules. Those three things are part of a modern development regulation, okay? Incentives, flexibility, choices, okay? Let's go to the next slide, please.
Do these incentives come from the planning board or recommendations that we give to the county commissioners for incentives?
They are embedded in the standards. Some of the cases that come before you will require some sort of recommendation from you. For example, plan development, okay? So we're gonna establish this plan development district, okay? And the plan development district is intended to accommodate an applicant's vision for that development, right? That vision may or may not be consistent with all of the requirements on the books. It's okay if it's not consistent with the requirements, as long as this body determines that what's proposed is better than what would have resulted from a strict application from what is on the books. If you can make that determination, then that's a recommendation that you make to the elected officials in their consideration. Okay. That's the zoning districts chapter. 30,000-foot summary, right? What we've tried to do is give you better purpose statements, more clarity on your dimensional requirements, and we've added that plan development district, okay? I'm going to talk more about the plan development district when I get to procedures, so that'll be Article 6. Article 2, uses. 7 sections here. The important thing to remember, and I mentioned it already, there's principal uses, there's accessory uses, there's temporary uses, and there's prohibited uses. And we should not be mixing and blending these up. We need to treat these differently because the rules that apply are different, right? Every accessory use is, by its nature, smaller than the principal use it serves, less intense, shorter, okay? Can't be established without the principal use. So there's a bunch of rules that apply to accessory uses. Same with temporary uses. That's a temporary use. It's not there in perpetuity. There's a set duration. It starts and it stops. You get a set amount of time. Maybe you can repeat that use next year, maybe not, depending on what the standards say. But there's a temporal difference. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. If nothing else happens in your ordinance, this table made all of this work worth it. This is the summary use table, okay? Across the top are the zoning districts, all of the zoning districts in the county. Down the side are the use types, okay? You look in the matrix of the table and you can see any particular use, whether that's allowed as a permitted use or it requires a special use or it's permitted as part of a plan development, okay? So that matrix will give you that information right away. Another thing that this table will give you, if you look in the far column where it says use-specific standard, there's a couple of brackets. Eventually there'll be a number in there, and that number is a section number where the use-specific standard for that use resides, okay? And the idea behind that is, if you want to do a use in Gates County, say you want to do a manufactured home, all right? If you want to do a manufactured home, as long as you're inside one of the districts where that's permitted, whether by right or by special use, that's cool. Just know that there are some additional standards that you have to follow, right? If there's a bracket over here, that means there's uses, there's rules that apply to your use, regardless of where you put it, okay? This is a very, very important tool for you guys going forward because it's going to allow you to quickly recognize, here are the uses that are allowed in each district, and here are the standards that we would apply to them, okay? I have a handful of uses in the table that are with this blue color. That's there to let you know these are new uses. You don't have these on your books today, okay? For example, family care home, okay? That's a small kind of a therapeutic location for up to 5 people. That's a family care home. Why is it on your list? Because you have to have it. You can't not have it. It's required by state law for you to accommodate family care homes, so they're listed. Group homes have protected status. That's why they're here. We've added, remember I said the telecommunication use has changed? You'll see a lot of blue telecommunication use types, okay? Almost all of the industrial uses listed in the table are new, okay? So this is a very important table. This is one that you'll use over and over again. And it allows an applicant to say, I want to do this use type, where can I go? Or, I've got this zoning district, what's allowed? Okay?
Now, I thought we already had this in the county. This just makes it a little bit more simple.
Hopefully it's a little bit simpler to read.
Yeah. So it's a lot more simple.
Also know that we've changed the uses around, okay? The titles, they're also alphabetical. There's also a use classification system. We've also added a system that allows you to address unlisted uses, all right? Hey, Chad wants to do a bank/coffee shop, which is a thing, okay? Is it a bank or is it a coffee shop? I don't know the answer, it's both. So how would we handle that, right? There's a process in this section that tells staff and you how we're gonna handle when a new use comes along, okay? How we make the determination about, well, this bank coffee shop is mostly like a financial services use, or this bank coffee shop is more like a specialty eating establishment, and that's how we're going to regulate it. Those are the districts where it's allowed, and that's the procedure we'll follow to allow it to be established. Go to the next slide, please. Remember I said there's principal uses and accessory uses. Here are the list of common accessory uses. There's more than this. These are just the ones that are common. This, like the principal use table, districts across the top, uses down the side, and if there are special standards that apply to that accessory use, okay? Every principal use can also be an accessory use, okay? But if you have an accessory use that is not allowed as a principal use, it is not allowed as an accessory use, all right? So do you see how that works? Okay. Again, these are the common ones. There'll be ones that come along that aren't on this table, and your staff will be called upon to discern how we're going to handle this. Is it permitted by right or is it special use? Note that some of these accessory use types require a special use permit, right? Like a drive-through. On the uses chapter, remember a couple of things. One, we've modernized. Two, we're making distinctions between principal, accessory, and temporary, okay? Let's talk about Article 3, the standards. This is probably where most of the changes happened. We've overhauled your parking and loading regulations. We've added some new landscaping provisions. Right now, today, there are numerous uses that have landscaping requirements kind of embedded down in them. If you're going to do this use, you have to have a buffer. But it doesn't say how big the buffer needs to be or how many plants you have to have or which sides you put it on or anything like that. It's sort of loosey-goosey. We've tried to bring some more consistency and regularity to the kinds of landscaping requirements that are on the books. Fences and walls. This is a new section. Okay, you don't have a whole lot of information about fences and walls. Where can they be on the site? How tall can they be? What are they made out of? What's not permitted in terms of materials? So those kinds of standards get addressed in the fences and walls section. And then signage. Do you have any signage rules? You don't really, do you? It's not really anything.
Not really anything, no, except for maybe the small home occupation sign.
That's right. Yeah, there's the little home occupation sign, right. Other than that, yeah, not a lot of rules. So we've tried to establish some signage regulations. Can we go to the next slide?
I think the fence and walls thing is a good thing, 'cause I see a lot more fences and people putting, I don't know if it's property barriers or privacy barriers, but you see a lot more of that going up that we used to never see here, so.
That's right.
That's probably a good thing.
And some people, I mean, who you talk to have different feelings. Oh, gosh, that's having a fence permit or requiring me to get a zoning compliance permit for a fence, that's needless bureaucracy. On the other hand, my next door neighbor might see it differently if you're trying to put that fence on my property, right? So that's why there's a reason for having those kinds of standards. This is an example of the parking table, okay? So earlier I showed you the use table. It's the one with all the colorful rows in it. You remember, or colorful columns. You remember that one? Okay. Every single one of those use types has a parking standard, okay? So whatever use comes along, we know what kind of parking is going to be required, whether that's by the number of employees that it's intended to have, or its square footage, or its number of seats, or whatever the metric is. Our parking table sets down the requirements for parking. Now, in addition to just the flat-out numeric requirements, the parking section also sets down our dimensional standards. So how big are parking spaces? How big are the aisles? What can I use my parking spaces for? For instance, can I keep vehicles for sale in a required parking space if I'm a car dealership? Answer, no. Because that's storage. It's not parking. If I have a single-family home, do I have to have a parking lot? No. I can park my cars in my driveway. Okay? So some standards about how the parking lot is configured. That's also in this section. Landscaping.
I bet if you had these mobile food trailers and stuff that people have, is there anything about parking in it that addresses those?
Food trucks?
Yeah,
What kind of use would a food truck be?
just feed you.
It would be a temporary use. If you look in your ordinance under temporary uses, you will see a new set of standards for food trucks. So, we got you there. Next slide. We tried to enhance, and I mentioned this before, your landscaping standards, trying to just bring some consistency, some normalcy. So now, except for single-family homes and a couple other kinds of de minimis kinds of use types, most new development is going to require a landscape plan to be prepared, okay? And that's something staff's going to review. It's not necessarily something you guys have to review, though it's there for you if you want to look at it. There's a landscaping plan requirement. We have new plant material specifications. How big does the plant material have to be when I plant it, right? Trees, shrubs, etc. Rules about my landscaping placement, okay? Can I put landscaping in a sight distance triangle? No. Can I put landscaping in a drainage easement? No. Okay, so there's rules about where landscaping can go. And then also, in those areas where I've got required landscaping, right, can I put parking spaces there? No, because that's a landscaping area, okay? So more clarity about that. Now, parking lot landscaping is a kind of landscaping. Going forward, new parking lots for non-residential, mixed-use, multifamily developments here in the county will have requirements to include landscaping. Parking lot landscaping consists of a ring of evergreen shrubs around the outside of the parking lot and a series of trees that are spread throughout the parking lot such that there's a maximum, or I guess it's a maximum distance between the trunk of a tree and any parking space, okay? So you've got to have 60 feet between a tree trunk and every parking space. You, developer, go figure out how to make that happen, okay? The idea behind that is make the parking lots more attractive, reduce the heat island effect that comes from the parking lots, assist with rainwater absorption, sound attenuation, etc., and frankly, property value, okay? So give me shrubs around the outside of the parking lot, give me trees at strategic locations in the parking lot to give us shading, right? Because which spots go first in the parking lot? The ones in the shade, right. Finally, perimeter landscape buffers. Okay, so wherever there are district edges, where I've got one district that bumps up against another district, okay? There's a requirement for a perimeter landscaping buffer, okay? So if I have an I-1 that borders a residential district, that I-1 district is required to provide a perimeter buffer along that boundary line that's shared with a residential district, okay? There's two kinds of landscape buffers. There's the semi-opaque buffer and the fully opaque buffer, okay? And there's different widths associated with each, and there's different numbers of plants that are required for every linear 100 feet of each. And again, the idea here is the semi-opaque buffer has some plants and trees and, you know, a moderate width. The fully opaque buffer, wider, more trees, more shrubs, because it's designed to be more opaque, all right? So the landscaping standards set down the instances where perimeter landscape buffers are required and the configuration associated with them, okay? Next slide. Sign standards. So this sets down the basic requirements for the different kinds of signs: wall signs, window signs, awning signs, pylon signs, blah, blah, blah. Monument signs, portable signs. Gone are the sign standards that reference individual use types. We've incorporated additional standards for temporary signs and additional standards for political signs. Those of you who either run for or will run for office, we've lost our elected official, know how important political signs are. These are the basic standards, and we've tried to integrate these in ways that are common sense, easy to administer, and will keep you out of court. Nonconformities. Next slide. 5 sections here. You guys already have these standards. Most places do. Essentially, the idea behind the nonconformity is here's a use or a structure or a lot that doesn't comply with the standards for whatever reason, right? And these things pre-existed our rules or change in our rules. And therefore, they have the right to exist and they're grandfathered, although that's not a very good word, but they're allowed to remain. But the underlying philosophy of the nonconformities is that eventually, over time, we want these nonconformities to be phased out. We want these things to become conforming. Okay, so we allow them to be maintained, we allow them to continue, but if there's abandonment or cessation, or if there's casualty damage, if there's a fire or a flood, then there's rules that apply. And I may or may not be able to reestablish that non-conforming use or non-conforming structure after casualty damage, right? As a matter of threshold, right? So if it's damaged by more than 51%, I can't build it back, okay? If I leave it for 180 days and don't come back to it, then my right to that non-conforming activity is extinguished. And whatever I do on that property must conform to the regulation going forward. Okay, so we are gently trying to bring about conformity through the nonconformity standards. Next slide. Chapter 5, procedures. There's a lot of them. There are 13 procedures in the zoning section. You guys may remember this kind of approach should kind of look familiar because we had something sort of like this in the subdivision article, right? Where we had this, next slide. Summary table of procedures. Those are the procedures that you have and who makes the decision across the top and, you know, whether or not that was a decision or a recommendation or an appeal. This feels familiar, yes? Yes? Okay, good. At least one of you is shaking your heads. Yes. This table is almost identical, except that the procedures are different. So a handful of new kinds of procedures. The administrative adjustment I talked about. Remember, that's where staff can make a 10% deviation to a numeric standard based on specific criteria. That's a new procedure. Determination, okay? That's a new procedure, all right? It allows staff to interpret zoning map boundaries, or is that Board of Adjustment? I can't remember. I think we kept that with the Board of Adjustment. The determination allows staff to figure out vesting status of a prior approved development. If there are questions about an undefined term or an unlisted use, someone can come in and request a determination. The performance guarantee is something you should be familiar with from the subdivision article. Remember, if there's an element that is required under the ordinance and somebody wants to either sell or occupy their development before that feature is provided, they may request a performance guarantee. In other words, put up a security, money or credit, in return for getting that approval before they've provided it. And if they fail to provide that improvement after a certain specified time, the county can come in and take the money, take the security, and provide that feature, okay? That's the performance agreement element. We talked about plan development. Let me go into more detail there. So, plan development. It's a district. If I want to have it, I have to come in and make application. There is a mandatory pre-application conference I have to have with staff. When I'm ready to file my application, I must bring a master plan with me, okay, that lays out what the development's going to look like so that you guys can see it and know, hey, this is going to be better than the strict application of the standards, or this isn't going to be as good as our standards. Get this out of here. They also need to bring a terms and conditions statement. That sets down the ways in which the proposed development is better than what would result from a strict application of the standards, all right? It must also list all of the anticipated use types in the plan development district, any phasing associated with it, and how they're going to comply with various parts of the ordinance, okay? So you've got this sort of textual statement that explains the things about the development and the master plan, okay? That comes in. TRC looks at the master plan and makes sure that it's feasible and practical in terms of the development requirements. Then the application comes to you. The applicant's going to come and they're going to sell you on this proposal. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You're never going to see a development this good, and here's why. Here's the flexibility pieces that I need in return for that. What do you think? And you guys are gonna be like, yeah, I like it, I don't like it, change this, change that. The applicant will say, yep, I'll do that, or no, I won't. And you'll be like, yep, we're good, or no, we're not. And that goes on to the elected officials for the final decision, okay? The rest of this stuff you're pretty familiar with, your basic run-of-the-mill rezoning, site plans, special use permits, amendments, variances, et cetera. Just kind of the bread and butter stuff of a zoning ordinance.
Lisa and Scott, y'all not plan on retiring anytime soon, are you? Okay.
This is a lot of stuff, but I gotta tell you, this is easier and more clear than what you've got now. I don't know if you believe that or not, but it's just that I like to talk about this stuff so much and I live it that you get me started on it and I just won't shut the heck up, so.
The good thing, it's got places you can go, it tells you where you need to go to find what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
And it's not.
I mean, and I like that. I mean, that's good.
That's great to hear.
Couple more articles for us to talk about, just two more and then we're done. Enforcement, basically, these are all of the provisions the county staff will use if there's a violation determined of the zoning regulations on land in the county. Most of this stuff is set down for us in state law, and we are simply just recognizing the state laws that exist. We include this information so that it's easy for an applicant or adjacent property owner to see what the rules of the game are, okay? So obviously our underlying philosophy behind this whole article is that we want to get compliance, right? That's our goal. We don't necessarily want to penalize, we just want to get compliance, all right? And so this is structured in that way. Now, if we come and we go through this procedure, this enforcement procedure, and we do our inspection and you get your notice of violation and you get your list of things that you have to do and you say that you're going to do it and then you fail to do it, well, there are penalties, right? Penalties take a variety of different forms. They're all set down in the remedies section. That could be a fine, it could be a stop work order, a permit revocation. We could go to court and get an injunction or an order of abatement or a variety of different things that we can do, we being the county, to address violations of our zoning ordinance. So that's really what the enforcement article does. It helps us deal with bad actors. Again, in pursuit of compliance, not necessarily penalty. Let's go to the next slide. Administration, this is the legal boilerplate. It's got the purpose for the rules, our authority to adopt them, where they apply, consistency with our comprehensive plan, how we relate to other laws, whether that's other parts of the county code or other elements inside, the zoning or subdivision regulations themselves, how we handle conflict, vested rights. A vested right is a protection that's granted to a development approval from changes in the rules. There is a very, very complex and lengthy body of law that circulates around vested rights. Happy to talk in as much detail as you'd like about that. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, let's just move on from vested rights because your attorney has got a handle on this. Essentially, very important to applicants, they want to be vested from changes in the rules. Okay, when I get my approval, I got my approval and I don't have to listen to changes in the rules. That's generally the thought process. However, it's not that simple, right? Because if I've got a long development that takes multiple years to build, the rules might change several times over the course of that construction, all right? Rules change for good reasons, most of the time. And if the rules change, we want to be clear about when those rules are going to apply. Finally, review authorities. There's several review authorities in the county, of which you are one, okay? And this section sets down the rules for your operation and the rules for the Board of Adjustment, the TRC, and the other people who make decisions under the zoning ordinance, okay? So there's a couple things that you should know about very quickly. I assume everybody's been administered the oath of office. No. Okay, that's a requirement now. The county clerk will need to have you guys all sworn in under oath in the North Carolina Constitution, okay?
Does that have to take place now, or does it wait till after this is adopted?
once this is adopted.
Okay, then.
There are new rules about conflict of interest for you in terms of whether or not you have a financial or familial interest in any application that comes before this board. If you do, it's necessary for you to declare that and recuse yourself. Also, if there are other board members who believe that you have a conflict of interest, it's incumbent upon them to raise that, and there's a vote about whether or not you'll be able to participate in the matter, okay? And that's new state law that has just come down as part of the 160D provisions. Yes, she has to take an oath, so does he, and they have conflict of interest standards too. And if any of you guys ever get involved in any quasi-judicial matters, there's an extra set of conflict of interest standards that apply about your impartiality. Next slide. Definitions.
What protects us from those?
From definitions,
No, what you were talking about then.
conflicts of interest, or,
Someone says that, we were impartial if I were.
okay, so if you're not involved in a quasi-judicial matter, you don't have to worry about that, okay? So if you're not doing special use permits or variances, it's not gonna be an issue for you, you'll never have to worry about it. Because you don't have to be impartial. But when you are doing a special use permit or a variance, you must be impartial. The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution says that you must be impartial in considering an application. Okay. Definitions, 2 sections here, rules of construction, rules of language construction. When we say and, what does that mean? When we say or, what does that mean? Shall versus may, etc. This is language that's in your current code. Then there's the definitions. There's about 30 pages of definitions, which is actually, it's kind of a light, you got out easy on that one. Lately, I'm doing codes with 50 pages of definitions. So that's it. Next slide. This is our public meetings, April. Here we are. At this point, we've talked about the subdivision regulations, chapter 152, right? We've talked a little bit about the agricultural regulations, that's new 154. We didn't talk about building permits or flood because that's carried forward. That's 150 and 153 in the current regulation. And then finally 155, which is the zoning chapter. So we have covered all that we're going to cover of Title 15. We would ask, respectfully, that if you're in a position to make a recommendation on the document, that'd be super. If you're not and you need more time to deliberate, then encourage you to work with staff. If you need more time with me, I'm happy to work with you and answer questions and help you get this document in the shape that you need it to be. But in order for us to move forward and conduct a public hearing with the elected officials, we would like very much to get a recommendation from this body. Also, and importantly, if you guys are in a position to make a recommendation, we need for you to include within that recommendation a statement about consistency with the county's adopted policy guidance. That is a state law requirement. This Title 15 is an ordinance, and whenever there's an amendment to an ordinance that deals with development regulations, the planning board needs to make a finding or a statement of consistency. So that's where we are. Assuming you guys are able to make that recommendation tonight, that'd be great. If not, we can do it some other time. The next step is for this material to go to the elected officials, for them to have a public hearing and then to adopt. Assumedly, they'll have additional changes, perhaps like you. Maybe you guys have some suggested changes, maybe you don't, but if you do, and they do, we'll incorporate those into the final edits and we'll deliver the final version of the document to staff. in paper and in digital formats. That's everything that I have. How are we doing on time?
You are right at almost 5 o'clock. I think you've got
You
3
got 2
minutes.
minutes.
3 minutes. Yeah, you did great.
Well, you guys have we've covered a lot of ground in a very fast time. There's this document, the pieces that I've involved with have come in at 330 pages, if you count the subdivision regulations, the zoning regulations, and what we did with the VAD and EVAD stuff. So it's a fair amount of material here. We've talked about all of it. I'm sure that you probably have some questions, or not. If you do, I will attempt to answer them. And then I think, it's up to you what's appropriate in terms of whether or not you're ready to make a recommendation, or if you want to take a different approach. And that's really up to you, and I can assist you with that, or staff can assist you if you guys figure out what you want to do. But that's everything that I have. Thanks for the chance to address you guys. Appreciate y'all's work. I appreciate your patience.
May I have your phone number, please?
Absolutely. What?
Your phone number,
My phone number?
yes. Just in case we need to contact you.
Would you prefer email for any questions? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, either
Questions?
phone number or email.
Email would be better.
Okay.
That way, everybody can see it. So
Okay.
let me give you that. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, so it's my name. It's Chad, C-H-A-D, at CodeWright, CODEWRIGHT, planners, PLANNERS.com. Chad at CodeWrightPlanners.com. And please, 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 if you send me an email, copy staff so that they've got a copy in case somebody files a FOIA. It's necessary for us to be able to produce.
Thank you for saying that.
And I will be more than happy to answer any question I can.
What percentage of these rules that is state mandated that we really have no control over? 80% of it?
It's a good question. When we started this project, the intention was that that would be about 80% of what we ended up doing. Where we landed, I think at the end of the day, it's probably closer to 60. The landscaping stuff, the signage stuff, the improvements to the use provisions, some of the new procedures, that's not 160D mandate, but that's stuff you guys need. You need to bring your ordinance into the modern age. And so, and we've actually taken kind of a light hand here. There's plenty of other local ordinances that are 600 pages in length. So
That's for our pay sheet.
this
Go to
goes
Scott.
back over. Is there any other questions that I can answer for you guys?
I think you've done a really good job explaining this thing to us. It's going us through the steps and the way you have demonstrated and laid it out for us to make it so we can understand it. And I appreciate that.
Well, thank you,
It's
and you're
been-
welcome.
It's been an experience for me because I didn't really know what's involved with all these regulations and how they're made with the county. It's a lot. And also it makes me think now when I'm out in the public, why did some of the officials make decisions they do? And these ordinances, it's a lot of times their hands are tied.
Yeah,
You don't have any other choice.
no, you really, really don't.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for the chance to address you guys. And if we need to talk again, Lisa will let me know, and I will be on hand, and we'll talk again. All right, thank you.
Appreciate you coming out. And I know you got a busy night.
I do. I've got to get in the car. I got to go home and get ready to do one in Burlington, so thank you.
You got quite a ride.
I had Edgecombe County this morning, so yeah.
Ain't no grass growing on your wheels, is it? Again, thank you.
Thank you.
How many more we gonna get? Two.
I have one request of this. When this thing's finally finished and done, I'd like to have a final copy of it.
Yes, Chad is gonna provide us with 10 bound copies, and that will be for the planning board, and we'll have a few extra,
Yeah,
yes.
I'd like to
We
have one.
sure will. That was in the RFP when, I was getting that together. I knew that was something people, I mean, computers are great, electronic is great, but we really like to have something to hold in our hand.
Right.
I think that's a good thing, and I understand that totally. So that was a thought.
We need more time to look at it and take questions.
All right. Is there any more comments, or what do you think? How do you feel? I guess is probably a good question for me as well about this.
I feel like it's a lot to digest. I mean, you have given us more book work than I've had in the past 30 years to go over in the past month.
Yes, yes. But we are on a tight
I
timeline. Do you
realize
think y'all
that,
will be
Lisa.
able to get together, or you'll be able to?
I realize that, Lisa, but I think this, my personal feeling is give us another week. I say
Okay, that's
another
good.
week.
No, that's fair.
Another week, and then call another meeting in a week or so, and then say, okay, we adopt it or we don't, and come up with our statement.
So you would like to do one in another way? Yeah, the consistency statement, just to let you know, that is with the land use plan, the CAMA plan that we have. And also, and I'm excited about this too, as part of the CAMA land use plan, we have implementations and schedules and goals on there that we have to meet. And a UDO was one of those, and that is a big part of that, goals we need to meet as a county, that for the future, that was something that we wanted to check off. So I'm excited about being able to report, because we have to report that implementation goals in the schedule. We have to report, what have we done in the past 2 years? And I'm excited to do that. So I'm excited y'all are looking at this, and it's that consistency statement. I'll have that written. That is something I'll have written. It's pretty straightforward. If you'd like to do that and meet and have that adoption
Well,
recommendation.
We got the majority of the board here today.
Yes, you do.
I would still like to have Mr. Silver's input into it, just, you know, so the whole board can say,
I agree.
as far as I'm concerned, I like what's going on here, I really do.
I'm glad to hear that. I think everyone would be glad to hear that.
But like I said, I think, just like to have maybe another week to digest a little bit more.
Oh,
Just-
that, fair enough. I think being able to get it to the Board of Commissioners, our goal was to be able to present it at the May meeting, which is the third Wednesday of the month. So if we can get that and be able to present that, then hopefully they could adopt, is our goal. Because we
Right.
have to do it before July 1st. That's
Right.
our, what we have to do
I'm
by
I'm not trying to put
statute.
them in a bind, but, you know.
Oh, I
don't-
understand. I understand. So, that's fine. So do you want to come up with something on the calendar now, being that you all are here? I know some of you may have things you have scheduled or have to do, or,
I'd like to say this, if something comes up in the next meeting, I can't be here, then I'm in favor of what we've got going on here. I want the
Okay,
board to
you
do
you
that.
can go ahead and put that down, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm in favor of what, the work's been done and the rezoning and regulations and all this, so.
What's
so
the
he's on
action?
record. Now, is there a different time maybe that's good for folks?
If it's raining, I'll be here.
No, I can't say that. Now, we could do, if there's a different time you'd like for us to consider, is that something that, I know it's hard for everyone, and I get that. But if it's realistic, tell me now and we'll consider that, but it's up to you. But I'll try to schedule that.
Well, with me, I think if we just go home and review, put our thoughts together, in our next meeting, we could take the first 5 or 10 minutes and just make a vote on it.
That's all that's all it'll take.
Yeah.
Also, I want to offer this. If you have computers, we're allowed to meet by Zoom, okay? That's what I want to offer too. If you are out of town or unexpectedly and you want to still be a part of that, well, it'd be nice to have everyone a part of that, but that is an option. I
But our
think
next
I'd like to
meeting
make.
is in May, the third week in May?
Your third Tuesday in May, I think that's May 20, let me pull it up here. We look at all this now. We can pull that out. Yeah, ours will be the third Tuesday, so I'm thinking that's what, the 20th? Let's pull it up here. That one, always wants me to do something new. No, we don't want you to get me here. Find me. Okay, so in May, the first is on a Saturday, so that 1, 2, 3, that looks like it would be May 18th. Would be our next meeting.
And when is the commissioners meeting?
That would be May 19th,
So it'll be the day after.
day after. Day after. So we have to be able to get everything copied into them. So we have to get packages together. It's the first week in May. They have to, the county manager has to have that, and the clerk to the board, get all that together. So a little bit of a, preparation there.
Of course, I don't want to hold anyone up. And May gonna be a busy month for me, but as of right now, I'm in pretty much favor of what Chad had explained. I'm pretty much well versed on it. I just want to give the other colleagues the opportunity just to bounce on it. It could bring something to my attention I might miss. So I don't want to move too fast, but if I'm not here in May, I email you something that would let you know my voters, I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Well, how about we just have a meeting next week then?
Right.
I'm
Yes,
just
Yeah.
saying, why can't we just do it next week?
Yeah, well, we'll do it that's fine with me.
Sonny,
I'll
we
have
get
to make
this
sure the
done, we
room's
can move
available.
on. I mean, process can be moving, it's holding up on us right now.
Yeah, that's fine. And even, we should be able to get the room. I'll get with Warren. I don't know if we'll have to, record it. That's to be seen, but I don't think it's, mandated, but I never know.
We need to give you and Scott time to get your stuff together for the next commissioners meeting, so if we did it the day before, see, that puts a big burden on you all.
Yeah, if we
The sooner
would,
we can make a decision, then y'all can get y'all's work done.
yeah, because we have to get everything in a package ready, because what'll disappear probably is this red line version. And we're gonna give them a full version. And then they
You know
will
what I'm saying?
look at that and come up with a possible. Right. So yes, thank you. If you want to do it next week, what's the day you're looking at then? Tell me what you're looking at and a time.
Monday would be my best days.
Your best day?
Yeah, Mondays.
I'm open. I mean, I have no meetings or anything.
I'm fine with Monday.
Set it for Monday then.
You want me to call for rain on Monday, or you just?
Well, I'm normally out of town, and I come in town for the weekend, and then I'm just
Right.
out.
Is the morning the best time for everyone?
Always.
Always morning's best time? Not for
It's
you?
not good for me.
Morning,
But just have it, you set the time and I'll make it
Okay.
work for myself.
Monday morning would be just excellent for me.
Well, you want Monday? Well, I don't know how early people get up in the morning.
I can do it at 8 o'clock, that's
Yeah,
fine.
he's retired. I think he's letting us know that. Now, is that what it is? You're retired?
No, I get up at 5:30 anyway. So,
Oh, I didn't mean to touch that subject.
no,
I'm
I
sorry.
get up at 5:30 anyway. Now, I'm not retired by no means. Went back to work, keep from being home. Monday morning, 9 o'clock?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. 9 o'clock is good.
If I can't get this room, like I said, Scott and I are gonna be movers and shakers now, getting that scheduled for Monday at 9. If
This
there's
has
any
gotta be a
problem, we'll let you know first thing
Televised
tomorrow.
meeting also, right? Has to be televised too.
I'm not sure.
This
I'm
is a
not sure. I
workshop.
don't know if it's mandated. I don't know if we have to. I mean, I'll get with Warren. I don't know.
Another
What are
question,
you
Lisa.
thinking about Monday at 9? Is that not enough time? It's not enough time. Oh, you have to come in early to get it all. So you want us to schedule a little later? I mean, we don't have to live stream this. Yeah, yeah, I'll let you know for sure tomorrow. We don't have to live stream the
I wouldn't think so.
adoption. Yeah, we'll be good. We'll be good. Okay, Monday at 9, and I'll let you know if there's a hiccup or something we can't do. We'll get it on the website as soon as possible too, to get that, because it's a public
Yeah,
meeting
just give me a
still.
reminder.
Yep, we'll make sure you get it.
You don't
Most
need to put
certainly.
it, Lisa, you don't need to put it on the website. This is just a meeting of the, just right
We
here.
have to. Everything you do is public. We have to.
Good.
Yeah.
It's set by agenda. Well, we have to put an agenda and
Well, look,
announce.
yeah, but
It's
let
a
me tell you
special
something.
meeting.
How many people have been present for this right here and they're gonna come in at the last minute and say, I don't want this?
Well, no, they can't do that. You can't act on that. You can't do that. I mean, this is just how it is. It's just a public meeting where they can view.
All right, let me ask you this
It's a
question.
special meeting.
Commissioners meeting tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's tomorrow
Does
night.
somebody from the planning board need to be there to back up our questions, answers, whatever,
For,
for Mr. Carey?
he's not there tomorrow night.
He's not gonna be there
No,
tomorrow night?
that public hearing will be held in May.
Okay,
That's a month out. Yeah, that's a month out.
I'm sure he left here politicking, but
Yeah.
anyway.
I don't know. Yeah, you have to have, let's end this one. Let's end this one. Let's
Okay,
get your motions and all to adjourn. We're still live streaming here.
All right, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, I'll second that motion. All right,
Meeting adjourned.
15 seconds. 15 seconds.
Good, you had? Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah, all right.